Hello and welcome to another Optimum Business English video. This video will look at how to summarize a business meeting into the minutes of meeting. We'll focus on turning loads of spoken words into summarized written words, and then into organized type minutes that are shorter still and are to then be used as the minutes of the meeting as an official record of that session. This video will include the following sections: what it offers, that being the benefits of summarizing a business meeting, the best structure, practice exercises, and practical tips and tricks for success. So be sure to watch right to the end for those helpful hints to make it easier for you. Starting now with what it offers. The first thing a meeting summary provides is a clear and concise or brief look at the meeting that took place, in which key points are highlighted, an overview of the meeting outcomes or results is provided, and it only provides the most important and relevant details that are to be taken note of. A meeting summary or minutes of meeting ensures effective communication in the sense that it provides one point of reference for everyone to work towards, thus avoiding misunderstandings. Then it also keeps everyone informed and up to date on the latest progress. Meeting summaries also keep track of decisions made and who has the responsibility for making the decision. And where necessary, it also provides reasons for those decisions being made. Meeting summaries or minutes also ensure accountability. They are a written record either of progress or a lack of it. And they record how issues will be addressed. By that I mean that it is difficult to argue that you weren't given a job to do if it is recorded in the minutes of a meeting, so everyone is more likely to complete the actions assigned to them. It also acts as a record of progress. So, for example, if a person is given a task and they do not complete it, then their task will be recorded as being overdue in the next progress meeting, and this can eventually build up to a legal case for dismissing the person. Another thing it offers is the efficient and effective use of time. It is so much faster to quickly run through the minutes of a meeting than to listen to or read the entire meeting transcript or recording. Minutes of meeting or meeting summaries also provide documentary evidence for audits and other legal reviews. As it provides a historical record of all discussions, decisions, and the evolution of ideas over time within a team or a company. The next thing it offers is the ability to follow up on agreed actions. Minutes usually include a list of actions and follow-up tasks that were agreed upon during the meeting, as well as providing clear responsibilities in terms of who is to do what and by when. It also ensures that all the goals of those involved in the meeting are aligned. What I mean by that is that it ensures that the team all work towards the same goals and action plan as would be outlined in the minutes. Also, each team member can see how the work they do is vital to the progress of the team as a whole, reminding them of the bigger picture and their contribution to it. Minutes or summaries can also be used for the purpose of feedback and improvement, in that they allow a record of how things were done to later reflect upon it and to identify areas of improvement and lessons learned for future implementations. To put it succinctly or briefly, a meeting summary offers productivity, accountability, decision-making ability, an effective means of communication. It keeps everyone on the same page. It ensures progress towards common goals. And it minimizes misunderstandings. Now, what is the best way to structure a meeting summary or minutes of meeting? And there are 5 main sections. The first being the introduction, which provides the purpose of the meeting. Then there is the key points, which highlight only the main topics of conversation or discussion, before ensuring that all decisions are included in the summary as a record. Then also we look at the action points list, or a list of tasks or work that has been agreed to, as well as who will complete each of them and by when. Lastly, there is the next steps. It is important that everything is closed off correctly. And if that means that you need to hold another meeting, or that you need to train staff on changes, or to send out a subsequent communication to all staff, then these also need to be listed, actioned, tracked, and closed to ensure success. Let's do some practice exercises now to practice summarizing parts of a business meeting. You will be given a potential answer at the end of each to compare your summary to as a reference. But first, know that everyone has their own style of summarizing, so answers provided are merely best practice suggestions. Just a quick note before we begin. You have the ability here to pause the video and to re-listen to the conversation. So for the purposes of these practice exercises, we can skip the middle bit and go directly to the short typed notes ready for insertion into the minutes of meeting. However, should you wish to practice the middle summarized written word notes section, I've included the full transcript of what was said too, for you to reference to see if what you wrote down was accurate. For now, let's get some listening and summarizing practice in. Exercise 1. Attendees include the head of finance and their boss, the financial director. Listen to the next slide and summarize it by providing a heading and a summary as clearly as possible using as few words as possible. The first issue is that looking at the figures for quarter 3 or Q3, we find a concerning sales to cost ratio trend in that our physical retail stores account for just 28% of our sales, down from 35% last quarter. Yet, they make up 80% of our costs, and so they may potentially no longer be worth the cost. We need to consider closing them down in the near future. Continue now to get the full transcript of the conversation you just listened to, in case you also wish to practice taking written notes. What would your heading and brief summary be for this part of the meeting? Go back and listen again if you need to before moving on for the answer. Remembering that there could be a few variations of the answer, as long as you are nearly as brief and are as clear in expressing the point. Continue now to get a potential answer. A good heading for this summary could be Issue 1, concerning Q3 sales to cost ratio. The brief summary could be, consider closing physical retail stores, 80% of all costs versus 28% of sales. Exercise 2. Attendees include the head of finance and their boss, the financial director. as is often the case and is indeed the purpose of many meetings. An issue will be raised, followed by a decision on how to handle it, and both need to be noted in the minutes of meeting summary, and we will look at that in our next practice example. Listen to the next slide and summarize it by providing a heading and a summary as clearly as possible, using as few words as possible. I too noted the concerning downward trend, and I know that we cannot continue bleeding money indefinitely. However, I don't want to lay off so many staff just yet. Let marketing come up with a proposal to boost physical retail store sales, and we will review it again in 6 months before making any cuts. Continue now to get the full transcript of the conversation you just listened to, in case you also wish to practice taking written notes. What would your heading and brief summary be for this part of the meeting? Go back and listen again if you need to before moving on to the answer. Continue now to get the potential answer. A good heading for this summary could be decision, as it is a decision that was made to address an issue, and the decision is to obtain a marketing proposal to boost retail sales. With the caveat or stipulation in the details that it will be reviewed again in 6 months. You don't need to say before making any cuts, as that will be assumed to be the next natural step. Exercise 3. Attendees include the head of finance and their boss, the financial director. Listen to the next slide and summarize it by providing a heading and a summary as clearly as possible, using as few words as possible. The second issue is that our accounting software is so out of date that the software provider will no longer support it after December, and so they have recommended that we begin an urgent project to update it across the organization, which will be a significant expense, besides requiring a week's training for all users. Continue now to get the full transcript of the conversation you just listened to, in case you also wish to practice taking written notes. What would your heading and brief summary be for this part of the meeting? Go back and listen again if you need to before moving forward to the answer. Continue now to get a potential answer. A good heading for this summary could be Accounting Software Update Required Before December, with additional information being Start an urgent project, 1 week software training required for all users. Exercise 4. Attendees include the head of finance and their boss, the financial director. Listen to the next slide and summarize it by providing a heading and a summary as clearly as possible, using as few words as possible. Understood. Put a business case together showing how the updated version would save us money in terms of processing time, better reporting, etc. Versus the costs involved. Give it to me to review the Friday before the next board meeting, and I'll submit it for board approval. Continue now to get the full transcript of the conversation you just listened to, in case you also wish to practice taking written notes. What would your heading and brief summary be for this part of the meeting? Go back and listen again if you need to before moving on to the potential answer. Continue now to get a potential answer. A good heading for this could be Next Steps, Business Case. A standard business case should always include a cost versus potential savings and benefits. As a rule, it is not necessary to include that in the summary, but what is important to note is the next steps, which are for the head of finance to provide the business case the Friday before the next board meeting. And then for the financial director to take them to the board for approval. For our last exercise, exercise 5, the attendees remain the head of finance and their boss, the financial director. Listen to the next slide and summarize it by providing a heading and a summary as clearly as possible, using as few words as possible. That is all I'd like to bring to your attention for this week's update meeting. We will meet again as per our schedule next Monday. I'll share the minutes of this meeting with you by the end of today for review and comment. Thank you for your input. Continue now to get the full transcript of the conversation you just listened to, in case you also wish to practice taking written notes. What would your heading and brief summary be for this part of the meeting? Go back and listen again if you need to before moving on to the potential answer. Continue now to get a potential answer. A good ending for the meeting summary or minutes could be to note when you next will meet, such as next meeting Monday. And below it, you will note who is responsible for drafting and sharing the meeting summary or minutes of meeting, being the head of finance in this instance, and by when being the end of that day. Finally, let us take a look at some tips and tricks to help you summarize a business meeting more effectively. Starting with the 3 stages to summarizing a business meeting. The first, during the meeting itself, where you note everything that was said and by whom. And don't try to order it or highlight important things at this stage. Just jot down everything. Then, after the meeting, in the second stage, you now have time to order your notes into section headings, to highlight only the most important bits and to summarize it further. Before noting decisions, actions, and next steps with responsibilities and due dates. Then there is the final or third stage, which is the drafting of the minutes of meeting summary to be emailed to all who attended. You now take your double summarized written or typed meeting notes and carefully retype them out, ready for sharing with all who attended the meeting. Important to note here is that you need to double and triple check it, making sure that it is free of errors, be they spelling, grammar, or facts. Next, you make sure that it is as brief and short as possible by taking out any unnecessary words or items. A good tip is to use bullet points with as few words as possible whilst still getting your point across clearly. Lastly, you make sure that it is crystal clear and can be easily understood by anyone reading it before you press send. Now, we will look at a few general tips and tricks to successfully summarizing a business meeting. The first being to label it and the meeting summary clearly to show the meeting date in the file name and in the heading. The reason for that is so that it will be easy to find and refer to. Take our practical exercises here as an example. There, the financial director and the head of finance have a meeting every week on a Monday. And so, if they just named it finance meeting, they could not tell their meeting notes apart, as they'd all have the same heading for each week, unless they added the date to the file name and the heading. And then remember to only record what is important. The aim of a summary is to only focus on critical decisions, key discussions, and action points. Remember to be brief. You don't want your summary to be as long as the meeting. It should be short and to the point to save time when others need to go through it. Then, even though each person may take their own notes during the meeting, there must be only one official summary so that there is consensus or agreement and you don't have different people doing their own thing based upon their own notes, which may not be accurate. The use of headings and subheadings will make it easier for your reader to find the specific area they are looking for, as they'll not be forced to read through endless pages to just find a single line. Use clear language, avoid jargon or technical terms, unless everyone who will be reading it is familiar with them. Include a link to the location or attach the following directly to the email in which you send your meeting minutes. You attach any presentation, additional information, etc., that was used during the meeting, as it would aid any reader in fully understanding the context of the meeting summary. Also note any follow-up actions and due dates to ensure accountability and effective implementation of decisions made during the meeting. Take the time to double and triple check your summary, making sure that it is accurate, grammatically correct, and easily understandable before sending it out. Because in business, the minutes of meeting are legal documents and they need to be kept indefinitely. And so, any errors you may make will remain in the company records, potentially forever, as proof of your temporary incompetence. No pressure. Send out the summary as soon after the meeting as possible, while the discussions are still fresh in everyone's mind. And request participant feedback to ensure that your summary is as accurate as possible and that it does not miss any important points. And with that, we have come to the end of our video. We hope you found it helpful. Please remember to subscribe to be notified each time we post a new video. And thank you for watching.